People always ask, where did we get the name Blue Water Climate Control? When a Navy ship casts off lines, exits the harbor, and loses sight of land, that's blue water sailing. It takes a team of people to do that. Tireless work, focus, and attention to detail. So much of starting a business is just like that. After it's done, you get filled with deep satisfaction for accomplishing something. And it's quickly followed by, now the real work begins. We're Blue Water Climate Control.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to your Wednesday night.
All I said was good evening. You go ahead. I'm nervous because you're driving. So.
Oh, yeah, Sandra's holding it, though, so,
okay.
You get my voice, you get a silhouette, maybe not the whole face. The lighting face shot. The lighting is amazing. But welcome back. Sorry I missed last week. I know Maria held it down, had a great show, but we appreciate y'all tuning in to the Bucket 2MC show tonight.
I appreciate you making it. Appreciate Sandra holding the phone, keeping everybody. We can see her silhouette. Poor thing, she's literally holding this phone. I can see it in the shadow.
That's why she need a little thing to hold the phone.
Good thing she works out.
Yeah, right.
Really good thing she works out. Big news, obviously, in softball, Lady Vol softball. Ralph Weekly has retired after 35 years as a college softball coach and 20 seasons at Tennessee. The co-head coach, now full head coach, Ralph Weekly. His wife, Karen Weekly, will take over as head coach and has signed a contract extension through June of 2025. So big shout out to Ralph Weekly. Alexis, I know when you were here, you would go to softball games. What do you remember about softball and the Weeklies, particularly Ralph?
Well, they were very competitive, and I remember the Weeklies coming when we had recruits coming to watch the gym. Ralph always spoke. I spoke to him. Great guy. And they just taught the girls to be just as competitive as we were on the court, on the field. So had a lot of respect for him and his wife as coaches.
That's big news in softball. I mean, over 1,400 career wins total. He and Karen are the second all-time winningest coaches at Tennessee with 900-plus wins. Of course, the number one all-time winner in Tennessee athletic history, we all know who that is, Pat Summitt, with 1,098 wins. I do like that Karen Weekly will become head coach. I think the continuity is good. I also think she's earned that shot, and I really want to see women head coaches at Lady Vol programs whenever that is possible. So I am doubly happy about that.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Karen. She's been there the whole time. Like you said, the continuity, it continues. And just when it comes to recruiting, you're not really switching up who you're recruiting or how you're recruiting. So that helps too.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you get in on these kids, in high school, and that helps them know that, hey, it's going to be, it's like it was when I was being recruited. It's still Karen there. So
Yep.
Obviously that opens up this. I will say this was not a surprise. I mean, you could tell that Ralph was starting to think about winding down his career. And this had been sort of talked about late in the season, and then after the season ended that it was possible. So it's not like this came out of left field, to use a softball term, but it is a sea change in terms of Tennessee tradition. And I mean, obviously this opens up a staff position because now you have one head coach. So it'll be interesting to watch that. I will say that, in my opinion, from watching these things over the years being done, this was not a surprise. This has been talked about. So I would imagine the candidates for that, they're probably either done or very close to being done. So
right.
It's these things don't just, like I say, come out of left field, not when they're this big.
Right.
Karen wants to
No.
know, do you think Ralph will go into broadcasting? He very much well could. He's got great relationships with TV people. He also will remain a special advisor to the program, so it's not like he won't be around at all. But, of course, it will be totally different than being involved in day-to-day. You know how that is. There's a big difference in being a special advisor and being a coach.
Absolutely. You don't have the responsibility and headache of all the film, the hours, the communication. It's a tough job. You still take it very, very serious, but it doesn't take as much from you energy-wise, mentally, physically, demanding your time, demanding you to be everywhere recruiting-wise. So it's definitely a little bit better. You'll stay put a little bit more.
I agree. Deb Bradley says Wikipedia says Ralph is 74. He has earned retirement. I'll say, if I was 74, you would not see me. You did,
Wow,
no,
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's 74. The softball coach that just retired, 74.
Wow.
Yeah, shout out to you, Ralph. Way to hang in there, bud.
I know, man. I'd be hitting 64, and I'm thinking it's time to be done. And he's got 10 more years after that. Beth Edwards said an article on Justin's World. I'll be honest, I don't know what Justin's World is. Over the weekend, about the assistant coach at Missouri is headed to UT. That's interesting. Like I said, this has been out there in softball circles for a little bit. So I would imagine things that are happening or have already happened or are happening as we speak. But we wanted to start the show with that, with softball. We started with Blue Water Climate Control video. I would like to say that yesterday I had Blue Water Climate Control in my driveway. So I'm going to walk the walk here. I needed maintenance done on my unit, so I called Blue Water Climate Control. Scheduled it online, picked a time. They texted me every step of the way, showed up, perfect service. So now I can give you firsthand experience with Blue Water Climate Control. They are excellent, and I would not hesitate to use them. So please support our sponsors. Also, we have OrangeMountainDesigns.com. You got to remember them. They just put up a new like a candy bowl, like etched looking glass candy bowl with Lady Ball logo on it. So that's pretty cool. There are also beer mugs with Orange Mountain Designs logo on it. Beer, and you know how much I like beer mugs, so definitely one of those is in my house. Also, Alexis Hornbuckle basketball. She's busy as can be. I know you've got 2 camps coming up at the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame that the kids can still sign up for.
Well, we have actually, the numbers were so low, we decided to cancel it. So unfortunately, and when I say cancel, we mean reschedule. So we will do it. It'll be, and that's a lot of my fault. I got really busy and I let the ball. I had a turnover, Maria. Turnover. Marketing wise, I had a turnover. But the great thing is, we picked up sponsors during this. That's what I was really working on, and the timing of it, it just didn't match up. So we are rescheduling. To TBD, to be determined. We will get it out, flyers, everything. Shirts done by Orange Mountain Designs. Our sponsors will be a part of it. It's more than just a basketball camp. If you want your child to just grow in life, gain more.
Uh-oh. I think Alexis froze. Look, you back. You talked about it's more than just a camp. If you want your child to.
Strong. We will be our resources that actuals in the mental health field there to.
Well, she's breaking up again. Patches is like, I got this, Mama. What do you need me to do? I'll handle co-hosting. You broke up a little bit.
Oh gosh, I hate when I'm driving and I'm on the show, but basically empowerment, leadership, mental health resources, and education about it. And of course, basketball skills, a little bit of bug, a lot of bit of patch summit. So we will get that to you.
That's a good plan. And you're probably better off going a little later because I know Lady Vol Experience Camp is this Sunday, and that's a sold out event. So that's probably not a bad idea to put that off a bit. So we got a little breaking news here. You still can go to Women's Basketball Hall of Fame camp with Alexis.
Absolutely.
Will be a little later. Credence wants to know if he missed anything. We were talking about Ralph Weekly. Of course, that's the biggest news that Ralph Weekly has decided to retire as co-head coach of Lady Boss softball after 20 seasons, 35 overall years as a softball coach in college. He will be succeeded, so to speak, but not really, by his wife, Karen Weekly, who was also co-head coach and will now have full head coaching duties. So, and JW is a softball site. That's good to know, Beth. I appreciate that. I think Alexis she's frozen again, so I'll keep yakking. What is the latest with the basketball team and how our players that are rehabbing are doing? Not sure about rehab news. There's not a whole lot of news flowing out about rehab at this point. Those are my dogs misbehaving. We talked about Kian last week. I think Kian's not that far out of ACL surgery since she had it in January. So January, February, March, April, May. We're talking 5 months. So you really need 9 months on that injury. So I would not expect her. I don't know what my dogs are doing, to be doing any kind of court work right now beyond, maybe stand and play shooting. Obviously not cleared to be running and jumping. Marta, I have not seen any indication that she is doing active court workouts. So a foot injury, obviously June is not really the time you're going to push anybody. So not really sure about any kind of rehabbing updates, and not really sure there'd be anything to update at this point. There just hasn't been a whole lot of time passed. As far as the basketball team, you can see the videos. They're obviously doing some practicing. They are doing court workouts. Those are limited in scope in terms of time. You cannot have like a 2-hour practice. That's not going to happen unless you use all of your practice time at one session. But typically they spread it out because you can't be on the court that many hours right now. A lot more time is devoted to strength and conditioning. Since Alexis she's probably going to come back in. There was a visitor on campus today. I wouldn't talk about this if Alexis was in the chat. Ruby Whitehorn. She's a 6-foot guard from Detroit in the class of 2022. She was checking out campus today and making a visit to Tennessee. Since it's a one-day visit, I would definitely put it in the unofficial category, but it's good that kids are moving about, being able to do visiting things, seeing campus. Credence said, wait, what? Yeah, Credence, we talked about how this wasn't, it's big news, but it's not necessarily a big surprise. Ralph I think it had been building toward this. He is 74 years old. I think he's ready to retire, ready to find life after softball. That's always hard, of course, when it is your whole life, and that's what you've been doing for 35 years. So that is big news, but not completely unexpected. Credence wanted to know if the visit went well. I haven't heard otherwise, so I'm going to assume yes. Typically, if something doesn't go well, it doesn't, like they say, bad news travels fast. It would be really hard. Let's see if Alexis has no service wherever she's at, so we'll just have to keep talking. I'll tell her to come in if she can. It would be really hard to have a bad visit because it's such a laid back, particularly an unofficial right now, such a laid back atmosphere. You're really not going to have, like a bad visit. You're not going to come because an unofficial visit means you have to pay for it. School does not pay for it. So you are not going to make that kind of investment in time or your family and money if for something you really didn't want to do. So on an official visit, the school pays for the travel and hotel accommodations. A lot of kids right now are sort of making a circuit, right? They're going to different campuses before they get on the summer circuit, which all gets underway in July. So you'll see assorted things popping up of players being in different places. And those are typically your unofficial visits with players going in and out. I am sorry that Alexis can't get back in because I know she was actually over on campus today. and was able to see the team a little bit and watch some things going on. So she can share a little bit of that, of course, not anything about a recruit visiting, because that is not allowed. But Credence, are we expecting any commits soon? It would be unusual in June, because most are behind on visiting. They couldn't go on. Coaches couldn't see them for 15 months, and they're getting ready to hit the road in July, and they're going to be at all these showcase events all over the country. So typically if you're going to get commitments, there are exceptions, but typically it will come after these showcase events are over, late July, August, at some point when they're actually taking official visits. Some of your top players will wait until the fall. And then you have players like we talked about last week, Justine Passat, the shooter out of New Jersey. She committed last fall. She's in the class of 2022. So some players they know when they know, but Justine had also been here. She had taken an unofficial visit. So it's not like she had not seen the campus. So I never say never, because as soon as I say no, it's not happening, something happened. So maybe I should say no, nothing's happening, and then something will. But it would be unusual only because of the timing of how long they've had to not be able to be on campuses anywhere. And so they're catching up. The kids are behind. And I would now that they're allowed to visit, I would think any kid would say, I want to see the campus. I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. Alexis said she is trying to get back in. That is the drawback of driving, because you go in and out of service areas, particularly in any high peak times, which is probably lately anytime anybody is in a car because of phone use. I do believe that I think it's Tamari Key is on Vol Leaders. I think they're going to Brazil soon. I think I don't know if they've left already, but that was going to happen in late June. So I would expect her to be headed out of the country or preparing to do so. The Vol Leaders are a group of athletes from all sports at Tennessee, and they do assorted leadership and team building and growth experiences. And part of that includes a trip to other places. I think next year it may be Africa somewhere, which would be a really cool trip. But this year they're going to Brazil. So she will be experiencing life to the fullest, which is what you should do in college, particularly if you can get a trip to Brazil and someone else can pay for it. And Credence, she said, I met TK one time. She's very nice, incredibly nice person, incredibly tall person. You don't really realize how tall she is until you are standing close to her, and then you realize she is not 6'5". She is really pushing 6'7", to be honest. No word on Alexis yet. Nikki Anasike, I did an update earlier this week. Her little boy, Chelucci, had to have his stomach surgery. He had that done. It went well. The biggest thing is that he didn't have any internal bleeding, so that was a relief. The hope is that he'll heal up and be able to get a feeding tube that will help him catch up and get much more nourishment than he has been getting. Mez is the okay, now my cat's going to bite me. Why are you biting me? Mez was the other twin. He was a little bit bigger. You could tell from the photos, and he seems to be doing well. Everyone is still in the hospital. So Mez would hopefully be able to leave the hospital here in a couple of weeks. The Chelucci is probably in there for about another month. I'm just ballparking because everybody knows medical care. I mean, things can go in different directions in terms of critical needs. We are still keeping the GoFundMe going. I've got on my social media. Nikki has now been in the hospital since late March and obviously unable to work during that time. So it goes well beyond just an escalating hospital bills. It goes into issues of economic need. I can't imagine being off work for that amount of time and not bringing in any income. So if you can help, I will find the link for anybody who needs it. Let me go check. here on my spiffy little computer with my dual screens. Alexis must still be stuck wherever she is stuck, because I do not see her or see her coming into the show. You are, I know, now my other dog is misbehaving. They wait. They're good all day long until I need to do this. And then they are trying to do everything they can to see if they can be annoying. And they're doing a very, very good job of it. We did talk about experience camp. Let's see if I can get this link in there for anybody. And if you already have, I appreciate it. If you can share it or email it to people you know, I would appreciate that too. So with Nikki, she is so incredibly overwhelmed and grateful by all the support. We had talked last week, I believe, about Lady Vol Experience Camp. That's coming up this Sunday. It's an all-day camp where they get to go through drills that the players go through. They get a Q&A with the players. They get to tour all of the facilities, including the locker room, which is palatial. And it is a sold-out camp. So there will be a lot of players. Those are high school players coming in. And since you're right here before the fourth weekend, and then they're all on the showcase events, that's a commitment of time too. So shout out to the parents, especially the parents, for the ones who handle all this travel and with their kids and commit themselves to that. Whether you're doing it at basketball level or baseball or any youth sports, thank you to all of the parents for all that you do. If you're just getting here, we talked about Ralph Weekly deciding to retire after 35 years as a college softball coach, 20 seasons with the Lady Vols. The Weeklies are the one that took Tennessee from a program that was not having much success to one that has made the NCAA playoffs every year since 2004. They arrived in 2002, were hired by Joan Cronin. And today, Danny White announced that Karen Weekly will become the full head coach. She was co-head coach, and her contract has been extended through June 2025. So that is outstanding news that softball will have that continuity. I'm seeing if there are any other questions, and I don't see any yet. Let me check in with Alexis again. Any luck? Maybe stop for a minute. Alexis stays on the go, like crazy on the go, constantly moving around. What else is going on in Lady Vol land? It is it's hot here, I will say that, but we did finally get some rain. But otherwise, it's outside of softball news, it's relatively quiet, and that's kind of what you want in the off season. Right now, you want players doing workouts, getting in the gym on their own, getting caught up on academics. It is hard to carry a full academic load and play a sport, particularly one like basketball that crosses over fall and spring semester. So a lot of this time they need to catch up on things. Sometimes they'll take courses now that are particularly challenging. And even though it's in a compressed schedule, it's easier to take them in a summer session than it is to have to devote that much time to a class during the season. And I mean, that's the life of a student athlete. You every second of your day is accounted for. Credence wants to know, do we have any confirmed games besides UConn and SIU? That'd be Southern Illinois. Obviously, Stanford and Texas, they are home and home series that were interrupted by COVID. Texas was interrupted the day of the game, as everyone remembers, and Stanford did not travel here. They were not traveling outside of their region because of COVID. So that will get going. So you'll definitely have UConn, Southern Illinois, SIU, the Salukis, and Stanford and Texas. I do know that I haven't seen news of it yet, but I do know when they added Indiana last December to fill in for COVID cancellation games, there was discussion about wanting to make that a home and home series. So I'm not going to say that that's happening this season, but Indiana would definitely be on the list of teams that Tennessee would like to play. Also Notre Dame, that series was supposed to pick back up. It paused a year because of Notre Dame had schedule conflicts, and then COVID, Notre Dame wouldn't have been able to travel to Tennessee anyway because they also stayed in their region. Another thing that I would expect, and again, there's no official announcement, but I would imagine something's in the works, is Ray Burrell is a senior and has not had a home game yet. So she is from Las Vegas area. So I would expect Tennessee to be making a trip at some point in the non-conference schedule to play near her hometown, and the Las Vegas area would make a lot of sense to play. So I would look for that to be on the schedule. Trying to think if there's any other non-conference. I have explained to people that you want the big names. You want teams that are going to challenge you, and Kelly is doing all she can to beef up the schedule. You also have to have what I call home games without a return, meaning a team will come to Knoxville and play Knoxville, but they don't expect Tennessee to travel to their home gym because Tennessee is looking for just home games. That's how you end up with series like East Tennessee State or Lipscomb, because those teams agree to come here and you don't have to go back there, and Tennessee has to have additional home games for revenue. So you will see some teams like that, where what Kelly will try to do is get teams that compete in their conference. They won't be Power 5 because any Power 5 school is going to say, yeah, we'll come to Knoxville, but you got to come to see us. You got to play us. You got to come to our place too. Like with Indiana, Tennessee went there, and now Tennessee would love for Indiana to come back. So it's not always as easy as people think to put together a really tough non-conference schedule, because unless you can set up tournaments, and those sometimes you're at the mercy of who the tournament organizers are setting up. Like last year, Tennessee was supposed to go to Mexico over Thanksgiving, but COVID blew that up. So you also can add or get higher quality opponents in your non-conference by those holiday tournaments. So hopefully Tennessee will be looking at one of those too. Typically that's Thanksgiving. I would expect them to take a look at a tournament around Thanksgiving. So I'm sort of keeping my eye out on that. Not that I would travel there, but just that it's sort of, you got to plan your family events around the basketball schedule. Zach said could play Duke or FAU. FAU is a good one because you've got Shalom Pillow there. And FAU was coming here until COVID ended their entire season. And you've got to think about Tamari Key. And one thing I want to mention about Southern Illinois is former Lady Vol, Jody Adams. Her name's Jody Adams Birch now. She's an assistant coach there. So that gives another Lady Vol connection. And then, as Zach said, Duke or FAU. FAU's a great suggestion. And Tamari Key's going to need a home game. She's entering her junior year, so it could be junior or senior year. But she's from Cary, North Carolina. So you take a look at Duke or North Carolina. If she wanted, that would put her against her sister, Tiani Key. They may or may not want that. You have to kind of check with the sisters. Or NC State. I mean, NC State could make a lot of sense. They're right there in Raleigh. And Kelly was there at one point, and obviously also is good friends with the head coach at NC State from their overlap in Chattanooga. Kathy said, what about Gardner Webb? That's a possibility. I know Alex Simmons is there. You do want to, I'm not sure they don't even use the RPI right now. I'm not sure what theirs is because of their conference. So you have to be careful how many games you get like that, because it will push they don't use RPI now. They use the net, but you don't want to get that pushed down with teams that are so low on that it really hurts your own your own net. So you've got to be very careful how many of those games that you play in conferences that are pretty, that are not, they're not even, mid-major. They're somewhere in that middle range. But Gardner-Webb makes a lot of sense. FAU, you may even spread them out a season, maybe not both in the same season. And then you've got, it's a jigsaw puzzle. You're trying to figure out open dates on your schedule and their schedule. And sometimes you've got to go with what you can get in there. And those are often what they call payday games for the team coming in. These teams do not have the athletic resources and budget of Power 5 teams, and they can be paid to play at Tennessee. And that helps them with their athletic budget tremendously. I know the exhibition games, you cannot play a D1 opponent in an exhibition game unless it is a private game. No media, no fans, no publicity, no anything. So what you do is they tend to go to Division II teams, and that's how you get Carson Newman. For Carson Newman, it became a complete, it funded their basketball program almost for that season. So that's why you'll see Carson Newman going to places like North Carolina and Tennessee. Those are payout games that really help them. Creedon said, I would like to play a team like Jackson State. Or Troy, especially after seeing what Alexis Dye did there. Now, Alexis Dye home game should be pretty easy. I'm trying to think. Alabama, where did they? I'm losing my mind. Did they go to Alabama or did Alabama come here? Last season was an absolute blur to me. They went to Alabama last season. I had to look it up. So they'll try to get Alexis Dye a home game. The good thing is that she's not that far from home. So there will be an opportunity for her family to see her relatively close to Knoxville. The other thing is the SEC Women's Tournament this year, probably as y'all know, is in Nashville. So Tennessee needs to pack that place out in orange because it hasn't been picked yet for subsequent years, but I would imagine Greenville is going to be a popular site because Nashville will host the men's SEC tournament for years and years after that. And Nashville cannot lock up that arena for 2 weeks because of hockey, because it's not just the tournament itself, but the days that you have to build in for teams to practice and for the arena to be prepared. Beth said she'd like to see UVA back on the schedule. Selfishly, that's one of those teams that Beth, I agree. You're still in a Power 5 conference, and that's you've also got some fantastic recruits in the what do they call it? DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, Virginia area. It's not a bad idea to get in the Virginia area at all. Any chance of them playing at Rutgers or Penn State? Rutgers, I know Rutgers was being talked about for a while back, and then that kind of went away. Penn State, I haven't heard that name come up in a while, but I do think you need, and you're going to have to get to the Northeast when Justine Passat arrives in the 2020-23 season. New Jersey's her hometown in our home state, so you would definitely want to get up into probably Rutgers or that area for that game. What's a home game for Kean or Jordan Walker? Kean, obviously her family's from Philadelphia, but they all live in Florida now. So she doesn't really have ties to the Philly area. She played, of course, at Liberty and Virginia, but her family is now in Florida. So it may be that a trip to Florida is, and Florida did come here last season, so they would be going to Gainesville. That could solve it for Kean. For Jordan Walker, you got to get to the Michigan area. So that's a good question. And if you're going to do a home game for Jordan, you're going to have to do it this season. It's a little bit harder when you have a transfer because the schedule can be set 2 or 3 years in advance, and you sometimes don't have a lot of wiggle room. I mean, Kelly inherited some of the games that she's got and has to schedule around them. So I would hope they could get to the Michigan area. Obviously, you got to get out to Las Vegas. Ray's been here. This will be her 4th season. You've got to get you've got to get out there. Creedon said rematch with Michigan. That's not a bad idea. I haven't heard it mentioned. I'm just sort of spitballing like you guys. Joy McCorvey obviously was a coach there with Kim Barnes-Arico, so it's not like Tennessee would not have a relationship with Michigan. There's also some excellent recruits in Michigan area. So it's really, Kelly understands the value of getting into places in the Midwest. Indiana, Notre Dame. She understands that the value of getting games in an area where you also are heavily recruiting. Some of it's built into the SEC, Texas A&M. Georgia. You can do that. Georgia Tech would make a lot of sense to me if that can be worked out. Obviously, the West Coast trip, Stanford. That's usually a 2-game series where they try to pick up another West Coast team while they're over there. So sometimes that's harder to get a Power 5 team. I'm not sure you'd want back-to-back Power 5 teams. Usually there's one on there that's just not quite as challenging, particularly right before Christmas when the players aren't really thinking about basketball anyway. Kathy Hunter Rouse said, got the girl from Detroit visiting now. Yes, that was Ruby Whitehorn, 6-foot guard out of Detroit. Anytime I think of Detroit, of course, I think of the great Deidre Charles. God rest her soul. Tennessee has had some hellaciously good players from Michigan. Dina Head, Peggy Evans. These are coming to mind right away. Obviously, Jordan Walker's now here from Michigan. Karen said, are we at full staff for coaches, or do you see another addition? For floor coaches, yes. You got 4. The Harpers, Joy McCorvey, and Samantha Williams. They obviously just added a strength and conditioning coach. And there could be another office-type position. I know they had a recruiting director, but they also added that new video and person, social media video. I can't remember exactly the title. There could be another support staff position open, but I haven't completely tracked those. But as far as coaches, actual coaches on the floor, NCAA says you can only have 4 coaches on the floor active and coaching in a season. So, Tanya Edwards from Michigan. How could I forget her, Beth? Goodness, thank you.
And don't forget about Kevin Nash from Detroit.
Hey, man, we'll talk about Detroit players are tough, too. Absolutely tough. So you can only have 4 coaches on the floor at one time. That's it. So they've got that set with John, Kelly, Joy, and Samantha. As far as the support staff, big one was your strength and conditioning coach, was I think is now director of sports performance. I think it's got a longer title now. He's on campus. He's doing his thing, and the players are going to see way more of him right now than the coaches. If the players want to work with the coaches, they are welcome to work with the coaches and out of practice time, out of NCAA mandated time, but the players have to do it on their own. The coaches can't say, "Hey, we're gonna do extra shots." Player has to generate that, and the great players do. That's what separates your great players from your good players. Are you willing to work in the off season? Now, I say that fully aware that some people can have health issues, rehab issues, injuries. There can be people that are not cleared to do that kind of level of work in the summer. So I will say that just because a player doesn't mean that player doesn't want to be great. That player could be restricted. For example, Kean Green, obviously. Kathy said, I have family from Detroit. All Detroiters are tough. Yes, they are. And I have driven through there. I've never actually spent the night there that I can recall. And Michigan is it's pretty. One of my favorite trips was to Traverse City many, many, many years ago. Just an absolute beautiful part of Michigan. Zach said, go to Vegas for Ray, hit Arizona, then Stanford. It's a tough road stretch. Zach, that's probably an impossible road stretch. One thing is logistically, Stanford is due to come here. And I think that will stay in place. It just sort of, skipped over a year because Stanford didn't travel. So Stanford, if the schedule holds like it should, will come here in December. So Vegas to me, Vegas to me, just based on what I know of holiday tournaments, I'm thinking Vegas is going to be more of a holiday tournament, not a one-off like UNLV or something. I don't know that for sure, but I'm trying to track holiday tournaments that Tennessee's likely to go to. Mexico, Las Vegas, or out the Bahamas, Virgin Islands like they've done in the past. Since you got that gaping hole on the schedule where we know Ray Burrell needs a home game, the tea leaves that I'm trying to read tell me a tournament in Vegas makes a lot of sense. Now, that gets announced and set up by tournament organizers, so I don't have any news on that. I'm just trying to do like y'all do. It's June. We're all just spitballing here and trying to keep up with what could happen. I don't know who brought up this question. I think it was Credence that brought up the schedule question, but that's a great question because everybody's always fascinated with who are we going to play. Obviously, I'm hoping that we get a normal arena back. Football is going to be full capacity as announced. That is also outdoors, so I don't want to compare that to what they may do in terms of basketball. It'd be good to look at what volleyball will use the arena first as far as indoor sports. It'll be interesting to look and see what the rules are for volleyball because basketball sort of followed right along with that. Any idea when season ticket renewals will be? Credence, this is me basing on memory. Don't those usually go out over the summer and then people start renewing in July, August, September? Sorry for my dogs. And then single ticket sales typically start in October. But that is just my guess based on past years. I would imagine if there's any delay this year, it's figuring out exactly what capacity is going to be because people are going to want to return to their season tickets where they're used to sitting. So that they probably are trying to work out the logistics of that. Mikey Rickman said, do y'all think we will add more players at this point with an open spot? I know it's somewhat late. Adding one more post would be nice. Sorry, I'm late to the party. Maybe I missed this. Sorry if that's the case. Mikey, we didn't go there now. Yeah, right now they have 14. And yes, you could go to 15. And you could never have too much post depth. I will agree with that. I think with Sarah Puckett and Caroline Strickland that it's not as big a concern as, say, it may have been a few months ago. I'm not saying they're going to start or log tons of minutes, but I said in last week's show, the old corn-fed chicks of the 1987 team, that's what they were called because they were so big and strong. And that is a compliment to Caroline and Sarah. They are corn-fed chicks. They are strong and big. You cannot displace them in the paint. They do not give up ground. So I think the post depth could be a little bit better than, say, we would have talked about in March or April, even May, now that they're on campus. Does that mean you're not always keeping your ears open? Absolutely. Because graduate transfers can enter late. I mean, Jordan Walker didn't enter the portal until mid-July. So you never say never in that case. But I don't think there's any urgency like there was this time last year because, Tennessee needed guard help, clearly. William said, what did I miss? William, we've been spitballing, that's my favorite word today, the schedule and who could possibly be on it in non-conference games. We also talked about the big news in softball. It was not a surprise, but it wasn't necessarily unexpected. Ralph Weekly has retired after 35 seasons as a head coach, 20 seasons at Tennessee. He and his wife, Karen Weekly, are the all-time winningest coaches, number 2 on the list of Tennessee athletics. Number 1, of course, is Pat Summitt. Karen Weekly has been elevated to full head coach duties and extended a contract through 2025 season. So that was the big news in softball. Absolute shout out to Ralph Weekly. They arrived, he and his wife Karen, in 2002 and completely transformed the Tennessee softball program. He's 74 years old, and I wish him well in retirement. Ralph, go do something else. You've earned some downtime. William, what's another update on Marta and Green? Will they be ready for the start of the season? That is the hope. I don't get any indication they won't be ready for the start of the season. Marta is a foot injury, still still obviously held back now, but I would expect her at some point this summer to be on the court. Kian, that's an ACL, and she had surgery in January. She's still only, 5.5 months into rehab. That is a 9-month rehab minimum, really a full year to get, people say, to get fully back. But that I would expect her to be ready to start the season, but I also would expect her to ease in. You're not going to just put her out on the floor and say, here, go 30 minutes this game. So that's where your post depth, where Emily Saunders needs to have a strong summer. The 2 freshmen need to get ready. Jordan Horston, I mean, she's a big guard. She's excellent on the wing or at point, but I mean, you could put Jordan at the 4 if you ever had to. And Marta, of course, that's where she was starting. So they've got options in the paint. And Kelly really seems to like this team. She likes their attitude. She likes their work ethic. She's definitely creating more of where the returning players are much more familiar with her. Most have had 2 seasons with her. And the freshman players are ones who got to know her in the recruiting process. So they're coming in. The freshmen that came in, Jordan and Tamari and Emily and Jessie, I mean, they had to get to know Kelly in 4 weeks. Kelly gets hired in April, and they're on campus in March and in May. And I mean, that's tough. I mean, the person who recruited you for 4 years is no longer there. So I think everybody is getting much more comfortable. And now the focus can truly be more on basketball. The freshmen apparently have been an absolute delight, all 4 of them. Just absolutely good people to be around. They are respectful and they listen, but they're not also staying in the shadows. They're speaking up. They're using their voice, and that's what you want. You want freshmen to learn, but you don't want them to shrink from the moment, and they're not doing that. So that is really, really good. Kathy said they want to be here too. That makes a big difference. Yeah, yes, it does. William said, I think the non-conference could be UConn, Stanford, I think Notre Dame, and they should add Indiana and a Carolina school. I know they have been talking about Indiana. Because Tennessee went there and would love to have Indiana come here. Texas, of course, is on the schedule. Stanford, of course, is on the schedule. Notre Dame was supposed to rotate back on. COVID messed up those plans. We also talked about the fact that this is Ray Burrell. William, you missed this. This is Ray's senior year. You got to get to the Las Vegas area. So something's gonna happen there. I would love to see that be a holiday tournament where you have 2 or 3 games. That's always ideal. Particularly, Kelly likes that format. She likes to test the team early, see if they're ready to go 3 consecutive days. It prepares you for the SEC tournament coming up. So and one thing I think that people forget about Kelly, and I do know we have a more important issue show coming up at 8, so I'll start to think about wrapping up, is Kelly's Sweet 16 team at Missouri State did not start the season well. I mean, I want to say 1-6 or 2-7. I mean, people don't forget about that part. And when she did an interview where she was asked, how do you feel going into the conference season, which Missouri State did fantastic at, she said, I feel great. I feel this team is ready. You don't usually hear a coach with that much confidence with the team at sub 500, and I could be exaggerating that record just a bit, but they were sub 500. She knew they were ready. She had prepared a non-conference schedule that was going to test them, was going to challenge them, and make them tougher. So she is not afraid to take losses in November and December if it makes the team better. And that will be interesting to see who they play. And no, I'm not saying they're going to just, run roughshod over people or be undefeated at the Christmas break. But you can be undefeated at the Christmas break, and if you only really met 1 or 2 teams that can challenge you, you haven't gotten to the SEC season really knowing anything about your team. What are you going to do in a tight game? What are you going to do when things really get tough? What are you going to do with a team with a lot of depth? I mean, you can't go from beating somebody by 60 points to Kentucky's your opening game. That you just, none of your new players will be prepared for what is about to happen. Kathy said, what other schools are in Nevada that we could play for Ray? Besides UNLV, I don't know, or University of Nevada. That's why I'm hoping, Kathy, that it's a holiday tournament. Because in a holiday tournament, teams come in from all over the country. So to say that I am checking those holiday tournament announcements would be an understatement. I keep peeking at them to see where Tennessee might be at Thanksgiving. Because I know Kelly likes those tournaments. She had the team going to Mexico. And if you could get one of those tournaments and get to Ray Burrell's home state, what a perfect setup. So I am hoping that's what happens, because I think that solves two issues. You got Ray her home game, and you probably got to see 2 or 3 probably really good teams while you were there. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then, of course, as y'all mentioned, they go to Stanford. I mean, they go to UConn. Stanford should come here, I hope. I hope they didn't just pause that and then they start a new one. And then, because Tennessee needs Stanford to come here. I guess that would put Tennessee going back to Texas, or is that game just a wash because Tennessee got there? And because Stanford canceled that game from the get-go. That wasn't happening. Tennessee knew that. But Tennessee got to Texas. I mean, what were they, 2.5 hours before tip, and then had to fly home. I'm not sure Tennessee should have to fly back to Texas again this season and play again. They've already paid for one trip. It didn't happen. So nobody's asking me, but Texas, I think it's your turn to come here. So come on to Knoxville. So that is, I think I've got all the questions, and I know that the other shows coming up. Alex, you don't have to flip all the logos unless you have time. OrangeMountainDesigns.com, obviously our lead sponsor. Please take a look at everything they have. Get some early birthday presents, Christmas presents. They got this really pretty candy dish. Like, all I can think is M&Ms belong in there. Alex Hornbuckle basketball, performance training with Lady Vol soccer player Jamel Johnson, and of course, Just Pass It tutoring. And the video we saw at the beginning, Blue Water Climate Control. I actually needed maintenance on my unit. Went online Monday night, picked out a Tuesday afternoon time. Boom, they texted me, we'll be there. This is what we're doing. They got here. Did my unit maintenance. I set it up for it would be twice a year, incredibly affordable price. So I am not only advocating Blue Water Climate Control because they're a sponsor, I now can say I'm a customer. And of course, everybody knows I'm a customer at Orange Mountain Designs. I am not a customer at High Performance Training or Alexis Hornbuckle basketball solely because I am too old to participate in either one, or I don't have the energy to participate in either one. I'd rather be by the pool drinking beer. So we're going for a walk. That's about my high performance at this point. William said, could they play close to Nevada? William, you could, but you want to if you can, get to Las Vegas. That's where she's from. A lot of high school teammates there, high school coach or parents. I think that would be great. William, was that Oregon State? I think when they had Jamie and Mercedes home game. Was that the Oregon State game? And Washington, they went to Spokane for Angie Bjorklund. That was her hometown. So anyway, hopefully in August, we'll start hearing more about the schedule. People can start making your plans of when you can be at home, when you got to be tied to the computer, when you got to tune into the Buck and 2MC show after the game. So I have managed to talk, thanks to you guys, to fill this show, particularly those of you who asked about the schedule. I think it was you, Credence. So thank you. Everybody have a safe weekend. If there's any news about Lady Vols recruiting and stuff, y'all know where I am on Twitter. That's where I try to get it as fast as I can. Appreciate everybody coming. Let's get out of here so poor Alex can set up the next show. Alex, thank you so much. And we will see you guys next week. Peace.